Now, colleagues, I have the honor to invite here Elena Kobzeva. That will be the final presentation in this panel. She is also our partner from Yekaterinburg with a wealth of experience of doing photogrammetry work. Good morning, dear colleagues. My presentation will be about stereophotogrammetry. In other words, that part of photogrammetry which is handling, processing, and the use of the stereo pairs. The best definition is provided in the big Soviet encyclopedia, and still stereophotogrammetry goes back into history along many years. Even Euclides mentioned stereoscopy in the 3rd century BC. For instance, in the 17th century, artists were also experimenting with stereo drawings. Now, stereophotogrammetry is used, first of all, for preparation of topographic maps and plans. And what can we see nowadays? If we try to analyze the requests for spatial data from urban developing agencies, cadastre agencies, it looks like the data that they need should be up to date, first of all. So basically, their life cycle is half a year or a year max, and the accuracy is growing to 10 to 20 centimeters in plan and 15 to 25 centimeters vertically. How, under these conditions, can we apply stereophotogrammetry? This is the technical workflow which has its specifics. Aerial surveying can be done both by the piloted airplane from a UAV and a copter, and if you follow photogrammetric discipline rules, the results will be correct. When doing stitching, you need to have ground control points and triangulation. Then there is a cardinal change from the conventional models. Stereo models are already independent and self-sufficient products, and because the, say, urban developers and cadastre agencies do a lot of things that they don't need a real topo imaging, and they can be done already based on stereo pairs. In other words, these things can be done both by a specialized company, and what is typical can be done independently by the actual implementors of land surveying works, like the municipalities and cadastre engineers and other specialists. In fact, the way we see it from some of the experimental works and projects done by our company and other companies, the use for such highly accurate orthophotos, it's not really usable, and stereo models can only stereo models can ensure required accuracy level. Of course, as far as legislation is concerned, all of us feel a certain lack of it, and under our company we have a corporate standard in place for the production of highly accurate stereophotogrammetric projects that specify the things which are not mentioned in the standard laws and acts. Naturally, when we speak about photogrammetric data, we need to understand that we are implying huge volume of this data. Like if we take Yekaterinburg, then aerial imaging and aerial images for the whole town is about 10,000 images and occupy about 1 terabyte of memory space. A smaller town, 100 square kilometers, the UAV imaging, it would be 14,000 images, also quite sizable information. And also we need a special information system which would allow us to store and manage this huge volumes of photogrammetric data. And if we take the repeated photography, for instance, it can turn into total chaos. We offer to our customers, and we use it ourselves, the information system called GeoResource. It's our in-house developed system, and the system is fully in line with the current cloud trends and ensures both the storage and access to these materials from different channels. This is an example of this interface, and this system stores not only the photogrammetric data, like stereo models, orthophotos, and some thematic data and maps, but also intermediary data for stereo model creation, like the elevation model, technical reports, and digital terrain models. Here we have two different optional scenarios. If we're talking about a large municipality, then as a rule the system can be enrolled on the technical hardware of the customer, and the access to it and storage is done by the customer themselves. Such municipalities are small. Very few municipalities do not have such technical hardware to do that. For them, the storage is done based on our servers, and access to the materials is done through internet access. In other words, as a rule, the standard supply package for a customer includes the actual photogrammetric data, and the stereo models would be an instrument, and the material which serves for meeting some objectives, and 1 to 2000 scale ortho imagery is like additional bonus for visualization, some thematical data for the customer.
Also, there is a hardware and software suite for handling stereo models that includes stereo display SM1 and digital photogrammetric station PhotoMod. Then GeoResource is designed for stereophotogrammetric data storage and management, and of course training is conducted for the customer staff to be able to better and more effectively use the new data. So we've had quite a number of such projects, about 30 by now, in the Urals region. These are the samples of using end use, you could say, of stereo models. Some of these are conventional, purely stereo imaging, some flooding cases, cultural heritage conservation cases, analysis of land use, and creation of vector 3D models for spatial planning. Obviously, photogrammetric data has a great advantage, that is, they can be used for various purposes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Elena. Brevity is the sister of talent. Any questions? To tell you the truth, I got carried away with listening to you. It's always interesting to know just how the data is used for us software developers. So the two previous presentations have been of great interest to me. So there is a question, right? Mr. Chebuychev, did I understand correctly? You said that this technology can be used even if even an amateur is using the monitor. I mean, someone with no technical expertise. Right. These are the photographs of our customers. This is where a stereophotogrammetric system was supplied to municipalities. You see, the end user doesn't have to do the full range of photogrammetric applications. Triangulations are of no concern to him. What they get is the skill of stereo imaging, which is provided during a 5-day training. Then correction of territorial areas, coordination of plot boundaries. I mean, the specialists themselves can easily do it. So the way I see it is that you still train your users as to how stereo applications work. And should any questions arise, we help them address those. We still have some time left for a couple of questions. Very informative presentation. My question is, when you implement a stereo package in municipalities, do you have any experience? I mean, have you tried doing those boundary specifications? I mean, what errors can be attributed to them to become more accurate? Well, municipalities primarily perform supervisory functions. They don't determine the boundaries themselves. So a cadastral engineer comes to them with the ready-to-use boundaries information. They upload it, and they can easily see if any boundaries are taken into account. Okay, an engineer comes in with field measurements to the municipalities' officers. They copy it to the hardware. And what errors are found there? What inaccuracies are found compared to stereo models? Well, I can cite an example from Ufa, land regulation office. Originally, there was a lot of skepticism about the system. So an applicant comes in with field measurements of his or her plot. Comparisons are made, and oftentimes a field trip was necessary with extra measurements, land survey measurements, and they came back positive. I mean, there was a complete match. Now the number of such field visits have been tapered off. I mean, if you are looking for centimeter errors, I mean, I cannot be that accurate. It's a very good example, because we also wanted to attempt this triangulation and supply of a simplified version. I mean, our colleagues from Italy, but they're still they still haven't made up their mind, but our colleagues from Yekaterinburg are well ahead of the curve. Was it a question about stereo vision? No, just a remark and a request.
Ну, из всех обучающихся у нас специалистов муниципалитета только у одного.
We only had one problem with stereo vision.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Xu Ming from Smart Spatial China. As I know, we can collect 3D features based 3D models or textured 3D models in China. We needn't hardware. Then the question for you and for Victor, what shall you do? Because no hardware, we just collect 3D features, just based 3D models. Will you develop such a way to collect 3D vector data? Thank you.
Мы пользуемся исключительно для...
We use photomod, photogrammetric station. In a stereo mode, you add building contours, then you texturize them using photomod. Again, differences between 3D models is in their beautiful metrics. It's a great basis for any reconstruction work or any other type of activity. What I can add is that my company seeks to enhance efficiency all the time for 3D vector modeling. A lot of new introductions and novelties will be shown during master classes, and then we can talk about it in more detail. Also, we closely communicate with our colleagues in Russia who create vector models, and worldwide this is becoming more and more relevant. At the recent InterGeo conference, many companies showed dense models, including Eurosense, many other European countries. A lot of companies show interest in accurate metric models because they could be the basis for 3D GIS. I guess this is something that we can further discuss during roundtables and master classes. One more question.
I want to introduce myself. I'm Schneider Digital, manufacturer of a stereoscopic monitor, and about the question from the Chinese people, we have in China with a distributor who distribute our stereoscopic monitors in China. So we have the CCC certification. This allows us to import hardware to China, and we have a full HD stereoscopic screen and a 4K stereoscopic screen available for the Chinese market. And the distributor is South Technology. This is the master distributor for the Chinese market of our hardware.
I guess I should add something about stereo monitors made in Russia. Perhaps for Russian companies it will be of interest. This is our own in-house manufactured monitor, and I see at least 5 companies here in this room, I mean their representatives, who successfully use those monitors, stereoscopic monitor. Schneider's made monitor will also be demonstrated tomorrow. I guess Elena will find it of interest and use to see how one of the stereo monitors available on the market works. We're going to discuss that tonight. One more. Stereo monitors is a hot topic right now. We remember planars were very popular, but then they ceased to be produced. Then there were stereo goggles. But I guess now any problems with the stereo can be fixed. Okay, thank you, Elena.